The medical expert panel, the AHPPC, has endorsed a new set of arrangements that relate to workers in critical supply chains in food processing, food production and distribution, as well as emergency services. Now, as you know, some states have already moved on that as we're working together on that. I understand the Victorian government will be making further announcements on that today. That paper is now before National Cabinet for endorsement. I was not going to wait until Thursday for that. I have discussions with the Chief Medical Officer. As soon as it was endorsed, we agreed that that should immediately go to National Cabinet for endorsement. I anticipate that will happen over the course of the morning. It was sent to them earlier today, so we'll just wait for their endorsement, and that will enable them to take that up. What that involves is asymptomatic, close contacts being able to go to work in those sectors, but I'll allow the Chief Medical Officer to speak more to that. The next step is to take that further into other critical sectors, and we're especially looking at the transport sector, both in aviation and in other distribution tasks. So not customer-facing, I should note, on the food side. So if we're talking about Coles and Woolies, we're not talking about people who are working on checkouts. Anyone who's customer-facing, they are not doing that. But those who are driving the trucks to deliver the food, those who are stacking the shelves at night, those who are in the distribution centres, those who are in the abattoirs, those who are in the manufacturing places that are producing food, all of those are now caught up in those new critical supply chain rules, and we're looking to extend those to other sectors. I note some premiers have noted that they'd be keen to look at how we could apply that in the hospitality sector. We'll take that one step at a time, but for now we are very focused through the process being led by Minister Andrews on those critical supply chains and getting the workers where we need them to go. As the case numbers continue to rise, the volume of cases will of course have an inevitable impact on the workforce, and so we're looking to maximise those who can remain in the workforce, and that is why these arrangements are being put in place. But anyone who is symptomatic or has COVID, they are not going into work. And I should note that these arrangements are already in place in the aged care sector. They're already operating there as they are in the healthcare sector. Now, this is an incredibly tough time on business. There aren't lockdowns, but there are many people obviously impacted by being close contacts or people being wary, or those indeed who have COVID themselves, and that is having an impact on consumer spending. That's predictable and understandable. And that will be the case for a while yet, while Omicron works its way through and moves to its peak. But that means it is very tough on business. And so we're working to ensure that we can alleviate the impacts on business. Firstly, when it comes to any regulatory issues, and the first of those is occupational health and safety regulations. The Attorney-General is leading a process with the states and territories, which we anticipate being concluded in time for National Cabinet on Thursday, which will remove any suggestion of a requirement that small, medium-sized businesses have to be undertaking testing of their staff. There is some confusion about that. I should note, in pretty much all states, except possibly for Western Australia, there are no exposure sites anymore. And so the risk of a business becoming an exposure site is not something that they, as they were concerned about earlier in the year. That is now changed because of the definition of close contacts and the like. So working out those occupational health and safety regulations and giving small business certainty around that is very, very important. We identified this issue last week, and so that work is being done. Secondly, while large businesses in critical supply chains like Coles and Woolies and so on have the means to be able to support the arrangements that are set out in the medical expert paper about how their close contacts are managed in their centres, there are small and medium-sized businesses in the supply chain, in those critical supply chains, which won't have necessarily those resources. And yesterday I tasked Minister Robert with Minister Andrews to be working with those small businesses in those particular sectors about how we can support them more effectively together with states and territories to ensure that they can be taking up these new arrangements that are set out by the medical expert panel.